विग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौली स्फुरत् तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमां मीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्यामलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम् सततज्वर विषमज्वर ग्रह नक्षत्र दोषाञ्चान्या हर हर काली सर सर गौरी धम धम विद्ये आले माले काले बन्धे भज भज विद्ये मख मख विद्ये नाशय नाशय पापम् हर हर दुःस्वप्नम् विध्वंसय विध्वंसय
Yatra Yogeshwara Krishnaha, the Gita ends with this. Shri Krishna is considered to be Yogeshwara, and we have been seeing in this global festival of yoga how the teachings of Krishna are relevant even today, especially in the context of yoga. It is he who has given us the Yoga Shastra of Bhagavad Gita. And also from the life of Shri Krishna, we learn that yoga and ecology, environment as such go hand in hand. You see Krishna's, all his leelas were in Vanam, Vrindavanam, with a Parvata, Govardhana, the river Yamuna, and with cows and animals indeed. And so yoga and ecology goes hand in hand, and Shri Krishna has a great role to play in this as well. If you see all the names of the asanas, probably the 84 lakhs of asanas, everything is named after one or the other entity in the environment, in nature as such. Every asana, sometimes it's Padmasana or Vrikshasana, Parvatasana, all are connected with nature as such. So yoga is very eco-friendly, connected with nature. The ancient seers lived an eco-friendly life. So it's very important to understand the connection between yoga and ecology. And that is what in today's Global Festival of Yoga's session in the evening, we're having a beautiful session on yoga and ecology hand in hand together. And that is be presented by Shri Gauranga Das Prabhu from the Govardhan Ecovillage, which is part of the ISKCON Chowpatty, Mumbai. And Shri Gaurang Prabhu is very famous through his talks in the social media as well. Now we welcome all the participants who have joined us in this evening session to have a beautiful a sojourn, a journey, a yoga yatra to the Govardhan Ecovillage, where we are going to be taken through this journey by Shri Gaurang Das Prabhu. I offer my pranams on behalf of the Indica Yoga Global Festival of Yoga, all the organizers, co-partners. Welcome you all the participants and the guests as well. And I request our co-curator, Shri Anuradha ji, to introduce the guest today, Shri Gauranga Das Prabhu. Namaste.
Namaste Subbu Bhaiya for that wonderful introduction. And a warm welcome to you, Gauranga Das Prabhuji, for accepting to be on this festival and bringing in a very special dimension of how yoga can actually be applied in building a community that lives in harmony with nature. So I would just like to give a brief note on the founder of Govardhan Ecovillage, the story of Radhanath Swamiji, who wrote the book The Journey Home, is a great inspiration for many sadhakas, like our young sadhaka Ben Biate, who has walked from Switzerland to India. Radhanath Swamiji also in his younger days, inspired by the need to bring in spirituality to fight inequality, walked all the way from the US to India in search of his spiritual master. Today, he is one of the most beloved and respectful spiritual teachers. And he has spent the last 50 years internalizing that spiritual practice and sharing it with others. He is not only a guide, but also a community builder, activist, and a New York Times best-selling author. So there's a lot to say about him, but I will let Gauranga Das Prabhuji to show you more about his work through this fantastic project of the Govardhan Ecovillage. But a quick note on Prabhuji's biodata, because he is himself a very eminent personality, a very silent but yet a very eminent personality. So just his background is that of a student from IIT Mumbai. So he graduated he graduated doing his BTech in metallurgical engineering. Following that, he became the vice president of the ISKCON Chowpatty for about 16 long years. Then he went on to become the co-president of that same organization, where he's still serving in that capacity. He's also the global duty officer for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness of the ISKCON. And today he is the director of the Govardhan Ecovillage. But as the director of the Govardhan Ecovillage project, he's a bit like Vishnu, who has Chaturbhuja. And why do I say that? Because he has the role of, he's a social welfare catalyst. The coinage of the designations are so ingenuous in themselves that they give us an insight into the amazing work that he is doing there. So as a social welfare catalyst, Gauranga Das Prabhuji is the chairman of the Govardhan Annakshetra initiative of the Govardhan Ecovillage. The Govardhan Annakshetra initiative has been serving free food to the tribal villagers, especially during the COVID pandemic. Govardhan Annakshetra, in collaboration with Palghar district, where the village is situated, and in collaboration with the commissioner, has distributed over 110,000 free meals to the stranded migrants in the villages and slum areas of Mumbai. The second hasta of his is that as a sustainability, climate change, and social inclusion warrior. So in this role, he has implemented several sustainable green initiatives that include organic farming, waste management, water conservation, green buildings, alternative energy, Goshala. Each of these activities that is undertaken in this village is worth looking at and getting inspired from. As a social reformer, he's facilitating transformation in the lives of tribal villagers and around GV through various social and economic interventions for over 72 tribal villages, and including farmers' empowerment, rural education, women empowerment, skill development, rural education, water resource development. There are just many roles that he dons under each one of these bhujas that is there. But I will not deprive you of listening to the other two bhujas of his, because he is also a spiritual mindful meditation expert. And in his 3 decades of life journey, he has touched and transformed countless lives through his activities and different roles he has adapted to drive change in society. And he was also sharing with us just before we started that in the Govardhan Ecovillage, in fact, it's one of the first spiritual communities like that, which has a yoga teacher training program, a 200-hour yoga teacher training program that lasts over 28 days in a fantastic setting. And the last bhuja that is remaining is that he is a strategic character educationist, which means that he is the director of the Bhakti Vedanta Research Center, which is situated in the Govardhan Ecovillage. And through that, he brings students on a successful completion of their studies or submission of thesis. They get a degree of an MA or a PhD respectively, where he guides them through the philosophy, Indian philosophy and Vaishnavism. So this particular program is also affiliated with the Mumbai University. As you will now listen to him, you will discover many more things about how each of these bhujas is actively engaged in literally making a much more beautiful society for all of us. So Prabhuji, thank you very much. You will be amazed at how this person, with all his humility and simplicity, is there running these myriads of programs. But we request you to kindly share your vision and mission on this platform with us. Thank you.
Before Prabhuji takes over, I would like to also mention that his series on the yoga stories, have been very popular among the yoga community. And we always look forward for those beautiful yoga story series which Prabhuji has been presenting. And so that's really inspiring. So thank you for those wonderful yoga stories as well from the fraternity of all the yoga teachers, Gauranga Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
So thank you very much, Subbu Bhaiya and Anuradha ji, for welcoming me. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So thank you very much for inviting me, and my gratitude to Indica Yoga and all the organizers for making me part of this family and giving me an opportunity to share some of my experiences with creating a combination of yoga and ecology. So the Govardhan Ecovillage, the project, it was started way back in the 1990s. The first avatar, we tried something at a place near Pune. Then, unfortunately, certain things did not work out. Then we shifted here to Mumbai, near Mumbai, 108 kilometers from Mumbai in Palghar district. And this is a place which is known as Galtare village, and that's where we are situated. So basically, if you see, I have divided my, presentation into various aspects. So the 4 primary needs which each one of us is looking at is in terms of ecological, economical, self-sufficiency, which is social and cultural. So basically, right at the very beginning, we had the biggest challenge of defining the concept. What will be our concept for this eco-village? As you see on the screen, we have the worldview, the ecological needs, the economic needs, and the social needs, and all of these needs to be connected. So therefore, the word which we are looking for in trying to design the eco-village is known as harmony. Harmony with the self, harmony with the divine, harmony with nature, and harmony with the community around you. And so we actually focused on creating harmony at all levels. Today, the advertising industry is promoting this more and more, that you can only remain satisfied and happy if you get something from outside your system. And therefore, the FMCG industry, which was worth $30 billion in 2011, it's went up to $74 billion in 2018. And all this only in a period of 7 years. The kind of cosmetics and external gadgets which would work in the Western world may not necessarily have its similar value in India, because India is a land of variety with 21 agroclimatic zones and 55 soil types with more than 1635 languages. Without understanding the specific DNA of Bharat and India, if we simply try to ape and imitate the West, then we are simply going to be adding to the problem rather than solving the problem. And therefore, this is something which all of us need to appreciate, that imitation is not going to help. The annual carbon dioxide emissions have been growing astronomically. China is the largest emitter of carbon dioxide with 10,000 million tons of carbon dioxide every year. America 5,500, and the European Union, with approximately 2,300 million tons. And the global carbon dioxide emission has grown from approximately in 1900 it was 2 billion ton to 36 billion ton today. And therefore, we feel that life will go on with fossil fuels. We have abandoned petroleum, we have abandoned charcoal, we have abandoned all kinds of facilities for gas, natural gas, and everything. But believe me, the statistics are revealing something very, very deadly. And that is that we have only approximately 114 years of coal left. We have not more than 53 years of charcoal left. And we do not have more than 50 years of oil reserves left. And therefore, if you see from 1850 onwards till 2017, the global climate change has impacted by increasing the overall temperature of this planet by 1.2 degree centigrade. And therefore, in the next slide, I am showing what is known as the eco-village design. Is about creating an ecosystem for life. How do we create such an ecosystem so that ultimately there is a win-win situation for all? Why this is important? Because at the concept stage, at the design stage, if you do not consider what kind of solutions you're designing, your solution may turn out to be bigger than your original problem.
Prabhuji, sorry, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Your sound is crackling for some reason.
Yeah. Is it better now?
Much better. Thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, as far as the whole concept of solution is concerned, or designing solution, we have to be sensitive to the fact that the solution which we design should not create a bigger problem than the original problem. And in Delhi, in the early 1900s, they faced a problem. And the problem was that the number of cobras were increasing in the whole city of Delhi. So the British government came up with the idea, and they said that anyone who brings us a dead snake, we will give them 20 annas. So then they thought many people will come and bring their dead snakes. But the farmers around Delhi looked at this as a business opportunity and started rearing cobra farms. And so the number of cobras actually increased. And then they realized that, oh, what we thought did not work. And therefore we are in a soup. And so the British government decided, we are scrapping this scheme. And as soon as they announced, the farmers, they became so angry, they released the snakes in Delhi city itself. So this case study is famously known as when when the solution to a problem is worse than the original problem, then it is known as the Cobra effect. And therefore, we did not want to create something which would actually be more deadly than the original problem. So we realized that people in the city are experiencing tremendous amount of distraction. Today, internet has reached almost 4.2 billion people in the planet out of the 7.6 billion people. And we also see that the distraction levels have increased from 12 seconds way back in 2012 to 8 seconds in 2017, and we have beaten the goldfish in distraction, where the goldfish distraction level is only at 9 seconds. And therefore, depression levels rising with 370 suicides happening every single day. We realized that we have to design things in such a way we should connect the city to the village. Because India has 650,000 villages. We have approximately 80 crore population living in the villages. But then most of the people in the villages are faced with several basic challenges. So is there any way by which we could connect the needs of the city dwellers to the needs of villagers? And with that concept in mind, that itself is the beginning of one aspect of yoga, because yoga means to join, yoga means to connect. So we thought, is there any way that the folks from the city could be joined and connected to the folks in the village? With that in mind, we started thinking about creating a facility which would address the needs of the city and address the needs of the villagers. Can we create a win-win situation for those in the city and those in the village? So then we started thinking, what are the folks in the city looking for the most? As I already explained, there are 300 million people across the whole world experiencing stress and depression syndrome. And in fact, even when I was in IIT, one of my friends tried to commit suicide. The reason was he did not become the topper. Although he was a gold medalist before, in that exam, he did not get a gold medal, he was depressed. So when people feel a gap between expectation and reality, they get so depressed, they are filled with so much of anxiety. And today during COVID time, so many people across the world are experiencing nervousness, anxiety, stress, depression, identity crisis, insecurities. And therefore, we figured out that folks in the city, they are looking for peace of mind. They are in extreme stress. And therefore, in a village, you create a facility which could provide them relief from that stress. And so that relief from stress could come via yoga, meditation, Ayurveda, nature trails, pilgrimages, various kinds of philosophical discussions, and creating an ecosystem where people would get an opportunity to take a break from their regular, fast-paced, hectic life on the conveyor belt. And they could step down from the conveyor belt for a few days, for a week, for a month, retreat, recharge, rejuvenate, and then respond to their latest challenges with renewed energy. And with that thought in mind, we thought, let's create a facility over 100 acres with the Govardhan School of Yoga, with the Govardhan Ayurveda, with the Govardhan School of Public Leadership for training students in ethics-based education for becoming future bureaucrats, for creating facilities by which people could get transformed. And when they get transformed by staying and coming and staying in more than 100 rooms which we have created, after being transformed, they would want to really go out and see what they can do to help the people around. And so we have adopted 74 villages around the 100 acres of Govardhan Ecovillage and tried to create the hub and the spoke model, where Govardhan Ecovillage is the hub, and the influence of the initiatives showcased at Govardhan Ecovillage is spread over the spoke of all these 74 villages, and it spreads to all of them, and it affects all of them, connects and touches all of them. And in this way, the Govardhan Ecovillage is a place which is connecting the city to the community in the village through conscious interventions being done here at the Govardhan Ecovillage. United Nations has stressed very much on the circular economy, and therefore, as part of circular economy, folks from the city come to this village. They spend 100 rupees here on various activities for transforming and rejuvenating their mind and wellness. It's a wellness retreat center centered around ethics, spirituality, and Vedic culture. And then a part of that money is then used by us for developing the villages around and giving it back to the community. So we call it also the yoga of the mat. And then whatever the villagers produce, then we take that and then we utilize that to again go back to the city and have our own products, which are known as the Haribol products, grains, the spices, the milk, and everything. And this way, the entire loop is closed. That becomes part of the larger circle of the circular economy. And as part of the United Nations Environment Program, as of today, we are fulfilling 13 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which the United Nations has, expected the whole world to follow. And we are happy to share that last year we got accredited to United Nations Environment Program as an accredited NGO. And this year we have become accredited to the United Nations ECOSOC Economic and Social Council, where Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji spoke just a few days ago. So taking it forward, we thought, how could we transform this whole concept of having an infinite resource to dump model, that you put resources in and then what comes out is in the form of waste. And this kind of a model we thought is not sustainable, because if you look at real life situations, we find that practically so much of water is being wasted, and all of this waste could have actually been stopped and in some way arrested if only we had done the proper planning. And therefore, this was extremely important for us to somehow stop and preserve the ecology around us, because we find that as far as India is concerned, the biggest challenge comes at the design stage. 844 million people do not have any drinking water facility. And less than 5 years of age, more than 800 people are dying every single day. Now, 2.1 billion people across the world do not get safe drinking water. And therefore, if we have 890 million people who are engaged in open defecation across, and 90% of the naturally disposed water is not properly, taken care of, it's a big problem we are facing, and that is all got to do with improper design. And so in this next cycle, we see that natural things within nature are all cyclical. So for example, if you see that 23,000 MLD, million liters per day of wastewater is actually treated. But compared to that, 62,000 MLD of water is just dumped. So therefore, in this kind of scenario, how can we create a system where we would have, just like as you see here, the carbon cycle is cyclic, the way the trees grow from the seeds is cyclic, then the entire water cycle is cyclic, and then the nitrogen fixation cycle is also cyclic. So nature by definition evolves and moves in a cyclic manner. And therefore, we thought depleting resources, increasing waste, ecological resilience is strained to a limit. And the increasing cost of waste handling, how do we deal with this? And therefore, are we living life on this planet just to protect and preserve our ego? Or are we going to do something to preserve the eco or the ecology? Just to give you an example, that Delhi NCR, is a place where so many people are living. Yes, I agree. But if you see, every single year, only in Delhi NCR alone, 1 billion liter of water, 1 billion liter of petroleum is consumed just for driving vehicles. And so many people are graduating from colleges. They are getting employed in Delhi. They are staying in Delhi. And so they and their families, they start discussing the parameter of growth is you must have your own car, or we must have 2 cars and 3 cars. Well, that's the status symbol. But actually, if you see that to burn 1 billion liters of petroleum, you need 15 billion liters of oxygen. And if you consider one tree to be giving out 120 liters of oxygen per year, then it's very evident that how many trees would be required to take care of this 15 billion liters of oxygen to be produced. That comes out to be approximately 600 million trees, which turns out that we should have an area to grow 600 million trees to be equivalent to 1400 square kilometers. Whereas Delhi NCR is only 47 square kilometers. And then every year you go on adding vehicle after vehicle after vehicle. For what? Ego, comfort, I, me, mine. And so this is a very important principle that we have to see, that we have to break this cycle of resource to waste. All of us act as consumers, and the linear resource to trash model converts the resource into waste, whereas the symbiotic recycling model has to convert the resource into another resource which can be used by the next system. So at the Eco Village, we decided that we are going to break this cycle, think out of the box, and have a methodology by which a resource will actually contribute into a product which will become an input for the next system. And what comes out, output from that system becomes the input for the next system. And this basically we call as the symbiotic recycling model. And if you see in this very simple cyclical diagram, everything becomes very clear. So let me take you through this small, simple representation of the Eco Village design. So as you see, Surya Narayan is smiling. And as we are discussing yoga, one of the most important basic asanas of very vital asanas of yoga is the Surya Namaskar. So Surya Dev is also giving us opportunity to create solar energy. And thanks to solar energy, the grass grows, the chlorophyll and everything is processed. And then you can see mother cow is eating and munching away the grass happily. And then mother cow gives the product which is known as gobar or cow dung. And as a result of the cow dung, the grass is fertilized and more grass grows. The more the cow eats, the more dung comes out, and the cow and the grass are happy as a one unit, and they live happily ever after. If only the two of them live. But the problem is then humans also come and say, we want to live. And so when humans come in, complications begin. And so then humans need agriculture. So you'll be shocked to know that 70% of the global water requirement is consumed by agriculture. That means if we are looking at saving water, we have to seriously look at how we are creating systems by which food is produced. So the food consumption patterns are a very important element. And therefore, as we produce the food with the cow dung and cow urine based fertilizers organically produced on site at the Ecovillage. We produce grains. We have indigenous varieties of rice. We have indigenous varieties of dal, various types of vegetables, fruit trees. And what is produced is then, cooked inside a house which is made out of mud blocks. And then the food is cooked in the energy, and that energy is produced through the biogas plant and through the solar. And then ultimately what is eaten has to come out in the form of, the waste. And that waste, if you see on the right hand side, goes into this box-like structure, which is the soil biotechnology plant, which processes approximately 4 crore liters of black and gray water into fish fit water. That comes out into irrigation. That fertilizes again the grass. And then in this way, the cycle continues. And therefore we see that one output becomes input for the next system. And in this way we have a zero waste concept. And so we begin with the construction. So when we look at construction, there were various options, but we thought we should construct in such a way that we retain the green architecture as much as possible. So therefore, we decided to use low embodied energy material, which was the locally produced mud. And we added 8% cement to that. We added grit powder to that. And then we used simple compressed stabilized earth blocks, mud block making machine. And then using that, we have produced more than 400,000 bricks on site. And as a result, we have created construction of walls which are of low embodied energy. For example, during the construction process, we did a thorough planning of zoning. We created protective fences around various trees, and we did smart sourcing so that practically all of the sourcing was within 10 kilometers of the eco-village. The zoned construction made sure that the construction debris is not spilled all over the place. We used simple natural mud. The foundation used was stone masonry. And then we used arches in the construction. And the advantage of using arches is you use less steel. And therefore, overall, the construction methodologies used, which included rammed earth, which included compressed stabilized earth blocks, which included cob, all of these created walls which had very less embodied energy. If you look at a typical brick wall with plaster and paint, it uses an embodied energy of 72 megajoules per kilogram compared to a compressed stabilized earth block wall which uses only 0.275 megajoules per kilogram of embodied energy. And therefore, there is also the additional advantage that you do not have to touch up with paint every year, every 3 years. And so it is low maintenance. And this is how it looks. So it has the earthy feel from outside and from inside, but there are very comfortable interiors for people to stay. And there is a natural temperature drop of up to 3 to 5 degrees as you go inside, because this wall is known as a breathing wall. And therefore, we have created more than 100 rooms, which currently can accommodate several people for yoga retreats, for Ayurveda breaks, for corporate retreats, for various educational camps, for school trips. Many of our school children are, divested of the opportunity to connect closely with nature. Many of our school children do not have a forum where they can understand and appreciate their own Vedic culture, their own roots, their own tradition. Many of our children do not have opportunity to come in contact with rich biodiversity. So, in collaboration with Dr. Salim Ali's team from Bombay Natural History Society, we have converted the whole eco-village into a bird and butterfly sanctuary also. And we have preserved the biodiversity. And as you know, that Sahyadri is a biodiversity hotspot. And we are right at the foothills of Sahyadri next to Mount Kohoj, where Shivaji Maharaj used it as a base camp to go and attack Surat. So it's a very historical place where we are. And therefore, the other big challenge was water. Because as you know, that water is one of the biggest challenges which the world is facing today. So across the world, there is 1.1 quadrillion acre feet of water available, out of which the glaciers have 68.9%, the groundwater has 30.8%, and the available fresh water is only 0.3%. So therefore, we should realize that 99.7% of the water is practically inaccessible to us. And therefore, if you see that over the next 100 years, our water demand is going to grow by 6 times. And therefore, we have to really focus on making sure that our water supplies meet not just today's need, but also the future needs. So we began with what is known as the hydrogeological survey. So if you look at this map, this was something which we did in 2011. And the hydrogeological survey made sure that we are able to map where the water bodies are, where the underground water is, where we should have the proper rainwater harvesting tank, where we should have the aquifer recharge tank, where we should have all of these beautiful things. And then based on that, we created this. And then as a result, what we have today is this most beautiful 1 crore or 10 liter rainwater harvesting tank in the whole Palghar district, created as a result of due diligence on systematic planning on understanding the needs of the water before starting anything. An interesting anecdote I would like to share. At that time, our architect, incidentally, also happens to be from Bangalore, Chitra Vishwanath, madam, and she runs an architect firm known as Biome Environmental Solutions. So she was the one who was insisting on a hydrogeological survey. And then she gave the contact of a very eminent water specialist, Dr. Himanshu Kulkarni, who runs Aqua Dam in Pune. Very renowned water specialists. But at that time, we were kind of new to this field and we were looking at everything with suspicion. And then, some rates were quoted by Aqua Dam and Dr. Himanshu, and we felt, is it worth it? And then someone said, you know what? This particular firm is demanding so much of money. But if we get a local village specialist, he takes a coconut in his hand and moves around the property. And wherever water is under the ground, the coconut starts moving. And that costs only 200 rupees. So maybe we should go ahead with this idea. And then the architect put her foot down and she said, if you compromise on this step 1, which is the most basic step required to start creating an environmental friendly project, then I'm not on board with this project. So then that's where, that's the point at which we decided that we should follow this due diligence and went for the hydrogeological survey. But thanks to that one step which we took of doing this hydrogeological survey and understanding every detail about how the water behaves in our property, how at one particular point of time in our property there are igneous rocks which would not allow water to flow from one part to the other, and then how we realize that we can create open wells at certain places, groundwater bore wells at certain places, groundwater aquifer recharge at other places. Then the entire water chemistry became clear to us, and then based on that we could actually create facilities by which we could conserve water, preserve water, increase the groundwater levels, and thus you can see the transformation, over the period of time. Then the next challenge was waste, because many times waste is not waste, but excess concentration of nutrients. One of the challenges in India is people feel that there is so much of land available. Why not just dump things here and there? What is the problem? And many times people think, okay, if we just dump all the, black and gray water in the land in the villages, what difference it is going to make? Because so much of land is there, Surya Narayan will again come to the rescue and dry up everything. But the problem is that yes, it may get dried up after some time, but that waste also percolates under the ground and pollutes the groundwater. And therefore, in many such village situations, there has been a 70% increase in the groundwater contamination levels, including incidents of arsenic poisoning, including incidents where there have been a very high concentration of E. coli in the groundwater because of the sewage water mixing with the drinking water, because over a period of time people just do not realize which way the water is moving under the ground. Therefore, dear friends, we took waste disposal very, very seriously. So today we have 4 levels of waste disposal. First, we have the food waste. Second, we have the black and the gray water waste. Third, we have the dry foliage waste. And fourth is we have the plastic waste. And we have made facilities for each of these waste to be processed and to be reutilized, so that net we have a zero waste community. So this looks like a garden, but actually this is what is known as a soil biotechnology plant. And this was created by one of my colleagues from IIT Mumbai, Chemical Engineering Department, Dr. Biplav Patnaik, who runs a company called Lifelink Technologies. He did his PhD in IIT Mumbai in the 90s, and he's been friend for last 25, 27 years. But the interesting thing is that the architect was telling me during the creation of the Ecovillage that I need a green technology for waste processing, because the typical STPs, sewage treatment plants, are very, very high energy, utilizing high energy guzzlers. They are not at all eco-friendly. And then, it is very, very difficult then to manage the waste. And I said, I don't know about any green technology. And we were having lunch, and my friend, Dr. Biplav, happened to be visiting me, and the architect was also there, and she started talking to him. And then when he shared with her his PhD project and the product, she got excited and she looked at me and said, hey, here is your classmate, and he has the technology which we are looking for, and you never told me about it. The SBT, the soil biotechnology, created by Dr. Biplav Patnaik and Dr. S. Shankar from IIT Mumbai, co-patent holders IIT Mumbai. And I said, well, to be honest, while he was doing his PhD, he was in so much of stress and anxiety that I never took his project seriously. So sometimes you need a third person to connect. And that also I call as part of yoga. So therefore it was, the divine will that various dots connected. And then this particular technology you see consists of a, gravity driven sewerage system, which brings in the black and gray water from the residential places to a collection tank. And then from the collection tank is pumped onto this top, and there are trees on top specifically chosen which have high density of root bacteria. Then there is hardened muram, which has more concentration of soil bacteria. There are geophagous earthworms, which are very good at transforming the sewage particles into that which can be processed. And then we also have what is known as the bioreactor. So together, what comes out is, you see on the right hand side, is an excellent fish fit water with very, very within limits BOD and COD levels. And therefore, this is, producing every year, we are creating approximately 4 crore liters of soil biotechnology treated water. Therefore, practically all the black and gray water is treated. Then, as you see, the construction waste is used for growing nursery plants. And then the food waste is also used for solid soil biotechnology plant. And the plastic waste is used in a pyrolysis plant, and it is converted into diesel oil. So in short, I'm happy to share with you that we have managed to create a zero waste eco-village. The energy challenge is not just depending on subsidized fossil fuel, but switching to renewables. So we have the solar plant, we have the bull-based farming, we have the biogas plants, and we have the animal-driven water pumps. So especially if you look at the right-hand corner, then you see the bull and the ADPM, animal-driven prime mover. So one of the biggest challenges it has become for people to showcase the use of bulls. And bulls are also useful and how they could be used. And therefore, every year we get during the harvesting, during the rice sowing season, school students coming from Tridha International School, a Steiner school, and they bring 30-40 kids. They want to train them in showing them and demonstrating how these, how the rice is sown, what are the challenges in sowing rice. And then during harvesting season, again, they come. And in this way, there are various ways in which the energy can be utilized. And today in India, hardly 15 to 18% of our total energy is coming from renewable sources. And then finally, creating a livelihood model which ensures social equity and ecological sustainability. As we are surrounded by villagers, we decided to start the Govardhan Rural Development Activities. This is spread over 74 villages. And in those 74 villages, we have farmer development, women empowerment, youth empowerment through skill development programs. We have health, education initiatives, free food distribution to 30,000 kids. And we have created small business enterprises for various landless farmers. So this is what is known as the Holistic Rural Development Program, centered around organic farming, watershed management, and healthcare. Interestingly, we see that many of these, farmers, they were actually, they left their farming and they were working in factories nearby. But after we showed them the Wadi model, which is what is known as a combination of agriculture, floriculture, horticulture techniques to be done with completely organic resources, then they could increase their yield. All through the year, they have some source of money coming from either fruits or flowers or grains or pulses or vegetables. So even within 1 acre, a farmer could grow something and increase his own income by up to 200%. And therefore, the Govardhan rural development activities, which began with 1 or 2 villages being adopted, have now grown to 74 villages in the Palghar district, including the Wada Taluka, the Vikramgarh Taluka, in the Mokhada Taluka, and also to some extent in the Palghar main Taluka. So we are trying to showcase this amongst all the villagers. The Seva beneficiaries are basically those who are engaged in this. 1100 farmers adopted, 6,000 farmers trained, and 13,000 horticulture planting has been done. You can see this particular family of Arjun. He was working actually in a factory in Wada, and then when our team connected with him, then he decided that yes, we can actually have our own setup with all the land which I have. And so it is very important for farmers to get confidence that they can maintain themselves, increase their income, and there is respect also given to the trade of farming. Today, Indian parents do not encourage their children in 3 most critical careers. Indian parents many times are not encouraging their children to become either teacher, soldier, or farmer. And they think that son should become engineer, doctor, chartered accountant, MBA, this, that. But teacher, oh, no good. Farmer, no good. Soldier, oh, very dangerous, unpredictable. And therefore, we have to really change our attitudes, our stereotyped, because the most basic thing which everybody needs is food. And that food is very much agrarian based. And if our farmers do not feel confident and they do not feel hand holding, then ultimately demoralized farmer will ultimately result in all kinds of problems. And then in a farmer setup, if a lady of the house can earn something extra and add, so we have this 200 plus self-help groups with 2000 plus women empowered and 10,000 family members impacted through all kinds of skills and trades being shown to them. And then along with that, the Bhaktivedanta Hospital, they go around taking public health camps and various kinds of rural health camps, eye checkups and other healthcare units. And you can see on the right hand side the statistics of how people have been impacted. And then we have what is known as Bhaktivedanta Kaushal Vikas Kendra, where we have people being trained in engineering, in food processing, in agriculture. And in 1 year, they go through training in 70 trades. And so this is training rural tribal youth who just, have failed in 9th and 10th standard. Today, India is one of the lowest skilling populations in the world. If you don't skill India, you will kill India. And therefore, the number of jobs which need to be created over the next, several decades is humongous. And then people will not be finding jobs. The number of unemployed are going to increase. So we have to create entrepreneurs. And therefore, our focus through Bhakti Vedanta Kaushal Vikas Kendra is to train people in entrepreneurship right when they are there in their own natural setting in the village. In other words, we are trying to arrest migration from the village to the city. We are letting the people in the village know your presence in the village and you're adding value through your profession and your contribution in the village is respectable, is glorious, is contributing a lot. And people from the city want to come and experience it, learn from you and benefit from that. And people from the city are coming and through the Govardhan Ecovillage connecting with the rural Maharashtra, feeling the benefit and sharing their resources, their contacts, their CSR funds, their technologies. And then they're also getting rejuvenated while doing yoga and Ayurveda with us at the Ecovillage. So we have tried to create a win-win model. And as Patanjali says, yoga chitta vritti nirodha, that yoga is the process of putting the waves of the mental turbulence to rest. And therefore, society today is in great turbulence, and society needs yoga more than any time before. And that yoga is what we translate as harmony, harmony with the self, harmony with the divine, harmony with nature, and harmony with those who are underprivileged and needy around us, whom we can support and transform. And to see these excellent initiatives, more than 12,000 visitors come annually from various countries. And therefore, the Govardhan Ecovillage is bridging the rural-urban divide, which is extremely important in today's context in India. Otherwise, you'll have more and more polluted cities like Delhi and Mumbai and Kolkata. And if you're just going to be adding to the list of the unemployed and the depressed and the distressed, it's not worth it. And we are very grateful that over the last 5 to 7 years, we have been accorded more than 36 awards, including the UNWTO Award for Ecotourism as a Catalyst for Rural Development in Spain. We are very, very grateful to the Government of India for giving us an opportunity to showcase the Govardhan Ecovillage in the UN ECOSOC Assembly, United Nations Economic and Social Council, and we have been granted the NGO category in the United Nations Environment Assembly also. So thank you all very much for giving me this opportunity at Indica Yoga to share with you a few thoughts. I'll conclude with 2 videos. The first video is of 1 minute, which was shown at the United Nations as a concept of the Govardhan Ecovillage, ecotourism as a catalyst for rural development, 1 minute video. And then there is a 7-minute video about the overall Govardhan Ecovillage story. So over to you, Indica team, for sharing these 2 videos. Thank you.
Prabhuji, everybody listening to this presentation is literally speechless at the details with which this project has been developed. In the Gita, they talk about yoga karmasu kaushalam, and the Govardhan Ecovillage is a model of how that skill in works has been represented in every aspect of its, like you said, the harmony. So every aspect of its collective development.
Rampant illiteracy, malnutrition, and lack of infrastructure. This is the story of Wada, one of India's most backward tribal areas. However, since 2010, ecotourism has become a lifeline for this region. Govardhan Ecovillage's sustainable development model, which is based on harmony with the self, the environment, and the divine, has helped employ over 300 tribal families. More than 60,000 tribals have been provided free medical care.
मोतीबिंदूचं ऑपरेशन झालं मला आता चांगलं दिसतं
30,000 free meals are provided to school children every day.
मुलं स्वतःहून शाळेत यायला तयार होतात.
Over 60 borewells have been installed.
पाण्याच्या सर्व अडचणी दूर झाल्या.
More than 300 families received training in organic farming.
आता पैसे येतात आणि बचत पण होते.
Govardhan Ecovillage has transformed the lives of the most deprived communities in the world.
Govardhan Ecovillage is about 2.5 hours northeast of Mumbai in a very beautiful rural village area of Maharashtra. There's a very holy place in India which is considered most sacred to devotees of Krishna. It's called Vrindavan. And in that Vrindavan is a mountain named Govardhan, which represents environmental, ecological harmony with spiritual principles.
This place is very special. Certainly it's unique in India and perhaps unique in the whole world. It's like a retreat center. It's like a spa. It's like an ashram. It's a place that's designed as an experiment to merge environmentalism, animal rights, and bhakti, spirituality, together, and it's working.
Come dance with me.
The amenities here are of a whole nother caliber. People, when they think of the words India and ashram, they think of harsh and rough living. From the Ayurvedic clinic, which not only gives treatments but also has an Ayurvedic doctor who helps prescribe something that is specific for your dosha. The atmosphere that is created by the founder, Radhanath Swami Maharaj, and the atmosphere that is created by the devotees who work here is palpable. You can feel it in the air.
Originally, I was from Chicago. When I was 19 years old in 1970, I wanted to try to broaden my outlook of life. So I went on a journey. Ultimately, I hitchhiked from London to the Himalayas in India. And as I was traveling, I came to realize that the real social and environmental problems of the world are due to a spiritual crisis. A crisis in what we consider is actually meaningful and fulfilling in our life.
Radhanath Swami is a passionate person. The best passion is compassion, and he has an ample amount of that. And that type of passion is contagious.
Coming here and helping to, doing the seva, the service, helping with the cows, helping with to weave mats, helping with make pottery. It's actually fun. It's very simple lifestyle, and I think a lot of us crave that on different levels.
And it's sort of programmed into our culture that you look for recognition. You need it. For me, being here, I see it's far more powerful to be humble.
It was easy to complain about the tiny inconveniences that come with a New York City apartment. Oh, it's not big enough. Oh, the water pressure isn't great enough. When you live in a house that you see built from the ground up, every step along the way, it's very special.
When people come here, we're trying to inspire an educational, experiential alternative of a fulfilling, meaningful, sustainable, healthy life.
Apart from these jasmine flowers which you're seeing, he grows a lot of this ladyfingers, okra. Yeah. So we network with all these farmers so that we purchase them in our kitchen and use them.
Can we get this to the kitchen? We can give them to the,
And the inspiration of this project, Srila Prabhupada, he called this transformation simple living and high thinking.
We get 3,000 millimeters of rain annually. So the rainwater hits against those mountains, the Sahyadri mountain ranges, and flows down and collects here. And it is sufficient water for us to irrigate our fields for up to 6 to 7 months every year. The majority of India's population, which is 1.2 billion, lives in the villages. So one of the very important requirements to develop a village is how can water be conserved.
The process begins here. As you can see, the raw sewage is falling and there are some screens. The first chamber is called screen chamber, where we are trying to separate floating solids. This is the raw water where we began, and this is the treated water.
The uniqueness of this place comes from the fact that every waste is becoming a precious resource. That cow dung becomes a fertilizer for earth. He needs fire or energy for cooking his food, and therefore all of the cow dung we utilize for biogas plant. We need to make houses, so we use the same earth, and we have created 250,000 bricks. We call this a symbiotic recycling model. Flushing your toilet, you are contributing to the growth of a papaya. You are contributing to the growth of flowers.
One of the greatest management gurus says that the greatest management challenge of the 21st century is managing oneself.
Many corporate heads are having seminars and retreats here. And they also see alternative ways by which they could focus their own corporations and feel a real sense of responsibility to humanity.
The thing I'm most compelled to do when I get home is really a seva. It's service. It gets us out of being so self-absorbed.
I always had too much. And now I want to have real simple life, like here. I love simple life, and my goal is to make a simple life in my home.
And if we just refocus our energies with these values, we could transform the world.
Every step that I take, a dance for you, a dance for you.
It's truly a miraculous, magical place on this planet.
Prabhuji, you're muted, yes. Having had the great blessing of visiting that place, I can also just repeat the last line of that video, which says, it is truly a magical place. And like some of our participants have said, it is like a paradise on earth. So we're extremely grateful that you shared about this, about the possibility of such a collective working and co-creation. A few questions, because I know you would also like to leave in a short while. A few questions that the participants have been asking, some very practical questions. So we have Ramakrishnan Sitaramanji, who's saying that given the growth rate of population worldwide and the rate at which even the basic necessities, food, water, shelter, need to be produced, do such eco-villages lend themselves to scaling up in terms of the quantity and rate of production?
Well, my reply and response would be that very important to realize that we have a lot of area all over the world. And there is no need for all of us to get congested in very small areas like Bangalore, like Mumbai. And you can see how the corona is affecting Pune, Mumbai, Bangalore and all. So yes, if a group of people come together, land is not a problem, but we have become so used to so-called comforts that the ability to experience resilience in the midst of nature and do some hard work has practically been lost. And therefore, you know, the smartphone culture and the tendency to just spend time lazing away watching various kinds of things on the smartphone is making even people who are traditionally used to hard work kind of, you know, forget that culture. Body by definition needs to be kept fit. And therefore, if we realize that yes, there are natural ways of living and we can actually connect with those natural ways. So we do not need like, 20 million people living in one city. There is no shortage of space. There is no shortage of land. And therefore, you know, we need to have a totally different approach to how we should be living life. And therefore, the question is that typically a couple of 100 years ago in India, the whole of India was an eco-village because everyone was living very sustainable. Just like, you know, I see that many of you are from South. So even today in South, they eat in traditional festival days and all on and marriages on banana leaf. So a German traveler came to an Udupi restaurant 50 years ago in Mumbai, 40 years ago. And even 40 years ago, Mumbai, Udupi restaurants used to serve out on banana leaf. So this German traveler ate the idli, vada and dosa, everything. And then he didn't know what to do with the banana leaf. So he started eating the banana leaf also. So on the way out, the manager asked him, how was the food? The traveler said the food was good, but the salad was a little stiff. So people just think that eco-friendly is something new, but our entire lifestyle was eco-friendly. Right from the, you know, idea of Even our plates were fully disposable. Our cooking pots were made of mud. And, these are some things which we have grown up with. And therefore, we just need to look back at our tradition and see how we can integrate with our current technology. And I realized that to create some transformation in rural India, you need three things. First is you need inspiration. Because if you do not have inspiration to do something, and that is something, and that is one of the reasons why the government is recognizing and so many awards are coming our way, is not because we have done something very huge or very big or something, because we are just one NGO doing something in 100 acres. Government has more money, more resources, more influence, more manpower, more powers under them. With one order, what they can move, we cannot even think of that. But when you have leaders who are inspired to do something, then transformation can happen. If the inspiration to create transformation is not there, then nothing can happen. So the first thing is inspiration. The second I is you need some intelligence to put all these things together, connect things together. So intelligence is required to connect technology with tradition, to interconnect various systems and design certain patterns which will work. And the third I is integrity. So therefore, with integrity, that you don't see whether somebody is looking or not looking. No, but I will dispose waste responsibly. You can't say, "Arey, kaun dekhne wala hai, jaane do usko, kya farak padta hai?" So that attitude demonstrates lack of integrity. So therefore, the way we respect Mother Earth, and we are conscious of each and every interaction which we are doing with our mother, it has to be respectful. So that integrity is very important, and based on that integrity, only then, based on these, the intention, the inspiration, and the intelligence, all the other things will follow. Thank you.
Yes, I think a lot of food for thought with those important suggestions that you gave us. So in the present time of COVID, where we are seeing that so many migrants are returning back to their villages, we have, sorry?
Yeah, go ahead.
When we are returning back to our villages, when a lot of migrants are going back to our villages, there is a need for the replication or the rejuvenation of the village culture.
Yes.
And making them sustainable in themselves. So we have Dhananjay Ghareji who's saying, I wish every village in India should become eco-village with proper modifications to suit its own geological and other position and requirements. So the question that would follow up from here, that we also had Shashankji who was asking, is that have you been able to replicate the eco-village model, the Govardhan Ecovillage model, anywhere else in India so far?
Well, Honorable Tourism Minister, Mr. Jaikumar Rawal Saab, who was in the government, last government in Maharashtra, the BJP government, he invited me to give a presentation to all the district collectors of Maharashtra. So I made a presentation to all of them, and he really pushed all those collectors to try to, create an eco-village in every district. And then I said that we can only consult. We have the best practices. Anybody wants to replicate, they can please come, stay here, understand. We have all the documents. Everything is there on the internet also. All the information is freely available. So, hamare sab darwaje khule hain. People can come and then learn and see and get inspired and do the needful. So I think that, as I said, more than any kind of influence and power and money, what is required is the will. And if the will is strong, then the various things will come out.
जी, and I think also that the log bhi bahut mukhya hai. So the people also are very important. So have you been able to recreate or clone more Gauranga Das Prabhujis who will be able to carry this in different places?
Well, it's not about just me, but anybody who comes together as a team and they really feel they want to make a difference to the nature and difference in the community surrounding, definitely they'll get the intelligence to do the needful. And definitely India needs many such inspired efforts, especially at the rural level.
Yes, I have one more question, and then maybe Subhuji might want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
But this is a personal question that I have. One of the things that the Eco Village demonstrates very beautifully is the need to have an integrated vision. And that integrated vision allows a lot of these connections to take place so that, like you said, it becomes a zero waste project. What, in your opinion or your experience, is the reason why India as a civilization or as a society has lost out on this interdependent vision that we have? We had a vision of seeing how everything was interrelated. Why have we lost out on that? Why have we lost it, and how can we bring it back?
Yeah, I think if you say India, is India in its language, is India in its dress, is India in its geographical boundaries. So traditionally, if you see that India was actually very much part of our common shared ethos and tradition, what was known as the Sanatan Dharma. And therefore, as India was divested of its connection with its original dharma through changes in the education system and things like that, so gradually that connection got lost. And therefore, traditionally, India has always been interconnected through its spiritual roots. And I think there have been various influences which have creeped into India after declaring, various kinds of policies and initiatives at the time of independence. So therefore, right from the British government's rule, when new education policies were introduced, the traditional Gurukul system was disbanded. So various influences happened which has crippled India big time. So I would say that a crisis in leadership and a crisis at grassroots, both.
And do you see hope in the future? Can we bring it back? Or how can we bring it back?
Well, the Indica Yoga Conference itself is very hope-giving. That there is a group of people sitting in IIT who are thinking about Indian culture and tradition reviving. So if, professors and thought makers and influencers in IIT are thinking about it. So alumnus from IIT Kharagpur is Sundar Pichai sitting in Google. So, I think the word will spread around and more people will get inspired, because ultimately movements are created by inspired people. Like that.
Yes, I think there's a great need to collaborate with projects like yours in order to make this more widely known and also implemented in different places. I'm wondering if Sububhaya would like to maybe ask a question, and then we'll close the session with your thoughts.
Yes. I think most of the things are answered by Prabhuji's very clear presentation and the videos. And there were a couple of questions if we can get his expertise and support. And Prabhuji has already given all doors are open, and then most of the information also available online, and he has also shared his contact details. I think one question which has come from one of our guests, Geeta Ramanna, I would just probably ask on our behalf to Prabhuji. Of course, Sadhaka is somebody who would take every challenge as an opportunity and then make it possible. You are very clearly present as the 3 I's as well. So she would like to ask us, what was the biggest challenge in making of the Eco Village?
The biggest challenge was convincing our own people that it needs to be done. Because we are part of our city, congregation of devotees and everybody. And Radhanath Swami was the one who was totally inspired by this concept and he wanted to make it happen. But because most of our, city connected people were not so much aware of this concept and they couldn't connect with the project. So to get support from our own people, was quite challenging because they just couldn't see. Because when you're in a city, you just think my world ends here. And if you're very happy with the temple in the city and your needs in the family and the kids are being taken care by the city temple, you would wonder, why are you doing something in a village? So therefore, that was the biggest challenge to somehow connect our own people to this concept. But now over a period of time, gradually they are connecting more and more and they're realizing. Otherwise they were thinking that some of them said, "Arey, tumko vanvas bhej diya udhar. Kya kar diya? What is going on?"
From the hectic Mumbai life, he was suddenly put into nowhere, sent to
So,
nowhere.
because in the beginning there was nothing there. So naturally, people are wondering what's going on here. What's the point of sitting there in a village? Nobody goes to a village, from a city. So such stereotyped ideas very, very strong, and they even affect, people who are very much connected to spirituality also, because it's a cultural transition which is required in your attitude.
Yes, Prabhuji, I had one question regarding plastic waste, because that has a long time for degradation. What do you do about the plastic waste? And if you can let our participants know how to manage it better.
Well, I would say that there is a pyrolysis plant which, honestly speaking, is not easily affordable to a common person. But if a community can invest in it, and then, even city municipalities can try to look into it. But the problem with the pyrolysis plant is not the plant itself, but segregation at source. As in waste everywhere, as you know, that the biggest challenge, especially in India, because India has such a whole, hierarchical thinking pattern towards waste, that no, everybody should not deal with waste and this and that and everything. But so therefore, if the segregation at source is not proper, then all of these plants will not work. Here we have a very, very controlled environment, and the whole community is trained to follow certain patterns of culture. And so we are able to manage that. But I think as a population, we need more training in this segregation at source, sorting of wastes.
Prabhuji, I think that sorting of waste has to happen in the head first, the mental waste sorting, and then it'll manifest
Yes,
itself.
you said, yoga is a chitta vritti, nirodha.
Yeah.
So we need to work on that and then get it done.
Okay.
I think there's been a lot of inspiration that our participants have received. If you don't mind, Prabhuji, I will just make the announcement for tomorrow's programs and come back to you if you would like to leave our participants with 3 actionable plans. The other thing I noticed about Govardhan Ecovillage was a joy, because I was there during Holi, and the joyful dancing and the garden that is there. It is an experience for everybody to have in a lifetime, whichever part of the world you're listening to this from. Yeah.
Right.
So I'll just make the announcements and come back to you for your suggestions, please. Okay, may I request you to kindly put up the program? We've dealt a lot with Karma Yoga in this session today, and tomorrow morning's talk is on Karma Yoga, Work as Worship, by M.K. Sridharji. He was a professor of management in Bangalore University and is currently the president of the Center for Educational and Social Studies, CES, in Bangalore. Sridharji has a vast experience, and he's also been on he's in fact headed the Karnataka Knowledge Commission for Education, as well well as being an important figure of the national education policy that was framed. So you'll know more about him, but do come to get inspired by another talk. In the evening, we have yet another brilliant, thought-provoking session by B. Alan Wallace, who's a Buddhist, who's a renowned Buddhist scholar, teacher, author, and the president of Santa Barbara Institute for Consciousness Studies in the USA. He was a monk under the Dalai Lama and also did a lot of translations for him for several years. So he's going to be talking to us on revitalizing India's ancient contemplative science of the mind. He has also set up a laboratory on contemplative sciences in the US that he will share with us about. So please make sure that you are reserving these timings and joining us on this festival tomorrow as well, and a few more days before this festival comes to an end. So, Prabhuji, over to you again. Yes.
And before Prabhuji would come to his concluding message for us, I just in this context, because we are celebrating the Global Festival of Yoga, which started on the International Day of Yoga on 21st of June this year, 2020. So in this connection with the history of the International Day of Yoga, I would like to bring something to the notice of the audience, the elite audience from all over the world, the yoga community, that we were listening to Prabhuji, and also during his presentations and all, we were seeing the mastermind behind this whole movement, which is Sri Radhanath Swami, who is a very profound disciple of Srila Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON movement. And when we had the first ever congregation of all legendary yoga masters of the world, led by Sri B.K.S. Iyengar, Sri Ravi Shankarji, Dr. H.R. Nagendra, who brought all of them together with Swami Amartya Suryananda in Bangalore. In the year 2011, December first week at Bangalore, we had the congregation of all these yoga masters. It is then when the first declaration of the International Yoga Day, 2011 December, where all this around 20 legendary masters and around 20 legendary organizations came together to sign, to propose the 21st of June as the International Day of Yoga. And I remember very clearly the holy presence of Sri Radhanath Swami Maharaj, which was there. And he said on behalf of the whole, Bhakti, yoga, which has Bhakti is also very important aspect of it. And that's what during many sessions in Indica Yoga's festival, also we brought various sessions on Bhakti Yoga. So Radhanath Swami represented the entire Bhakti Yoga gurus, and he signed there. And that proposal is what was sent to the Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, after it took 4 years for us to get the right time. Even though in 2011, it was all signed by all the great masters. And 2014, it was taken to Shri Narendra Modi ji, or Honorable Prime Minister, who represented all the yoga masters. He was like the collective force of all these spiritual masters together, taking it to the UNO and got it. So in this context, just I want to place in records the presence and participation of Sri Radhanath Swami Maharaj also in this beautiful proposal of the International Day of Yoga on June 21st, because Gauranga Prabhu was here.
Thank you. So I would say that in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yagya Dana Tapak Karma Na Tyajyam Karyam Evatat Yagya Dana Tapak Karma Pavanani Manishina. So there are three things which every human being should never renounce at any cost, however successful and however aged in life he may become. And these three activities help us counteract the three kleshas, the three disturbances we go through in our life. What are the three disturbances? Adi Daivik, Adi Bhautik, and Adhyatmik kleshas. So Adi Daivik means natural cataclysms, which are disturbances caused by nature. So how do you counteract Adi Daivik? By doing Yagya. When you offer Yagya, through the Yagya, you are actually sending the taxes to all the devatas, and somehow or the other, the nature cycle, because Krishna says, Yagyarthat karmano netra lokoyam karma bandhana. Tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. So that is Yagya counteracts Adi Daivik klesha. Adi Bhautik klesha is klesha caused by other beings. So how do you pacify other beings? By dana. When you give charity, then other beings are satisfied, and those who are inimical because of their own distress become pacified, satisfied, and they will not disturb you. And therefore, if in every community, those who have the privilege of having surplus, they decide to do dana amongst those who are underprivileged, then naturally there will be a harmony. Either they reach out to provide employment or skill or support or whatever. Yagya, dana, tapa. And the third is klesha, is adhyatmik. Klesha caused by one's own mind, our own senses, our own uncontrolled desires. Therefore, we need tapasya. And one of the best ways of doing tapasya is yoga. And therefore, as a result of that, we are able to overcome. When you give yourself, voluntarily give pain to yourself, you are protected from the pain which will be given by your uncontrolled mind. So therefore, going through the tapasya of giving pain to control your mind is a reliever of pain from all the uncontrolled mind which hits you. So therefore, my parting three lessons or my three kind of ideas is never give up yagya, dana and tapa, which is sacrifice, charity and self-discipline and austerity. Thank you so much, Dr. Anuradha and Subbu Bhaiya, for having me this evening, and thanks to Indica Yoga and your entire team.
We should have had a sign up form at the end, because we've got lots of them who are saying, can we sign up? When can we sign up? How can we sign up? So I would also like to express my gratitude to GPIW, which is a collaborator on this festival, for having given me the opportunity of meeting you and letting us visit Govardhan Ecovillage. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much.
We look forward to collaborating with you as well for our future endeavors.
Definitely, definitely. We are all part of the same family.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.